Good morning again, everyone. We are here talking technology at Future Forum, and we're going straight into our second panel this morning. How do we empower the future with technology? Our host, our moderator this morning is Kyle Maloney. Now, Kyle is a 33-year-old entrepreneur who has been making a name for himself in the ICT tech industry. Now, Kyle and Tech Beach Retreat really need no introduction, but they are really creating an enabling environment for young tech startups, not just here, but around the world. Joining Kyle on that panel this morning is Camille Salvon Abrahams, who is, to me, the animation queen of the Caribbean. Now, Camille is internationally recognized as an animator and multi-purpose producer. She's the founder of the Caribbean's first animation and new media festival, Anime Carib Animation and New Media Festival. Really phenomenal woman who is taking us into all sorts of digital spaces across the world. Keston Walkins is the chief neuro innovator at Allegory, which engineers innovation in education, art, mental health, and industry, using neuroscience and psychology, and all that is happening right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have Dr. Mandela Patrick, who specializes in developing AI algorithms to understand multimodal video content. Now, during his PhD, he worked as a researcher at Facebook AI Research in London and is currently a machine learning scientist at a startup in LA. Joining us back on this conversation is Joanza, our Heroes Youth participant, and this is going to be a really exciting session as well. So Kyle, it is my absolute pleasure to pass over the digital stage to you for this conversation this morning.
Hey, Lawrence. Thanks for having me here, man. I appreciate it. What you guys are doing is wonderful, and I'm happy to be a part of a discussion that I myself really try to drive on a regular basis. Where are we going as a region with technology? How can we best leverage technology to really accelerate our growth and our futures do not look like a linear extrapolation of our past. Technology has the ability to really catapult us into a whole other sphere that we really didn't calculate for, and that's essentially what those sorts of catalytic, really exponential outcomes is what I've been shooting for and hoping that we can achieve within our lifetime, and trying to set a foundation for these things to actually happen. And so I'm really excited to have with me on our panel today a range of people that are tackling the utilization of technology from so many different angles. Is really, really cool to see, from the perspective of mental health and neuroscience, from the perspective of the leveraging of artificial intelligence, data, from the perspective of animation. It's so many ways in which we can leverage technology to really have impact. And I'm excited to have three people that I consider friends here to have this discussion. So the discussion will feel really essentially like us join us in us having a conversation while we pull up, let's say, like at a Frankie's or something, talking about how we see the future, how we see the work that we're doing, and how we can work together, whether it be tangentially or very directly, to really progress the outcome that we're trying to get to. So, Lawrence, bringing in my other panelists, Keston Walkins.
Hi, everybody. Everyone.
All right.
Hi. This is awesome. What an intro, Kyle. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I want, because we all have a very good relationship at the end of the day, I want to take this panel style to feel like we chilling, talking, and the viewers hearing our conversation, and they wish they could chime in.
Yes.
We could take questions. I didn't see that. If we take questions from the audience, yeah. If we could take questions, all right, great. Yeah, Lawrence, if we could take questions. Yeah, great. So we'll get some questions from the audience, but I want us to feel like we're chilling because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like Mandela has talked to you on a regular questionnaires,
Mhm.
like by media weekend, Camille, we good, right? So
Yes.
let's talk about technology and how we see the region progressing from different perspectives. Like, how do you all see it? Mandela been off traveling the world, doing a bunch of different cool things. Mandela, could tell the audience a bit about who you are and what you do. Camille, with animation, you've been at it for a while. You've been making some amazing strides. You lay the foundation. Anything that we achieve in the region will be because we stand on the shoulders of you as a giant within the region. You know,
Really?
I mean,
Oh my
this is
God.
Heavy,
how I
heavy.
this is
I
how
did
I
not
see
pay Kyle, you all know that, right? He has not collected a check.
it. And Keston, buddy, the work that you are doing is really difficult.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
people aren't going to see the impact of this work yet. It's the kind of thing whereby you spend so much time building such an amazing foundation, getting all the
Mhm.
testimonials, seeing the impact, years of research, years of telling the stories of people that you're impacting. It's
Hmm.
eventually going to get to that catalytic point whereby shit is just going to shoot off. Wait, I can say shit?
Yep. That's it. No.
things, things are just gonna
Exactly.
shoot off.
Things. Yeah.
Things are just gonna shoot off. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
So
excited for it.
I am super, super excited. So let me give space to each of you guys to introduce yourselves a bit,
Hmm.
say a bit of what you're doing, and we can hop into the conversation.
Hmm.
I guess we could start with Mandela and then Camille. Oh, ladies
Hmm.
first, actually. Forget you, Mandela. Ladies first.
It don't matter. It's gender equity here, so it don't matter. But I could
Hey.
go.
All
I
right.
could go. All right. So, I mean, this is an amazing lineup. I want to thank Lawrence for saying queen of animation and not mother of animation, right? Because that makes me
Yeah.
feel a little better. Or grandmother of animation, I've been called
Oh
once.
God.
Ooh.
Wow.
so, so thank you, Lawrence, for that. But seriously, I mean, this is amazing. And often when I'm in company like this, I feel like if we have this kind of powerhouse on any panel with decision makers, Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean will be a totally different place, right?
Mhm.
My whole jump into animation started 20 something years ago. I mean, I'm giving away my age here, but 20 something years ago. And at that point, why that had to happen was because we didn't have those things in the Caribbean. We didn't have an option to even look at animation as a career, right? So just to give you a little background, so it's something that I studied at Goldsmith University. I specialized in animation. Coming back to the Caribbean, I felt like it's either what I had to do in 2001 was either stay here and find something else to do
Mhm.
or create an awareness. And believe it or not, that is why Anime Career was formed. It was a very selfish thing. I say this to people. It wasn't because I wanted to save the world. No, it was because I wanted to remain in Trinidad. I don't want to go back to
Yeah.
the Caribbean. So it was a way to create awareness because I felt like when I went to the banks, for instance, to say I want to I want to have a studio. One of the questions from my manager was then, well, what are you putting on the shelf? Explain that to me. So that intangibility, that
Yeah.
the idea that something intangible could make money way back then, if you all think you have a problem now, way
Mhm.
back then was an issue. No loan for you, no grant for you, because this thing we cannot see. It's very intangible. So
Yeah.
the next step from there was really taking it to the university level. Simply because in the festivals, what I saw was a lot of young people will come in and show me their phones, doing their animations based on what they see on the internet. And they would ask, where can I learn this? And that is what pushed me to put it on the curriculum. So we have now, I've worked with, I'm chief examiner, assistant chief examiner at CXC. And I was part of the panel for the development of the CAPE in animation and digital media. That was very, very critical. And then we also pushed the diploma at UTT to now be a BFA in digital media arts. So that's a little bit
Okay.
about my background.
Nice, 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 nice.
That's
So many times when entrepreneurs start things, it really comes from that perspective. It comes from that sort of selfish perspective of their experience. And that's what makes it so much more genuine and makes it
Mhm.
makes you so much more passionate about solving the problem because you yourself are experiencing that thing. So don't feel bad necessarily that yeah, it was a selfish thing, because the reality is that the experience that you're experiencing, so many other people may be experiencing
Right.
that exact same thing. And so we are best positioned from a selfish perspective to solve those problems because we see it, we feel it, and we care about it so much more than somebody else looking in across the street and saying, "Oh yeah,
Exactly.
that's a problem," but
Mhm.
somebody else can solve that. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
yeah. So next up, Mandela, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Carl, and yeah, definitely excited to be part of this panel. Yeah, a little bit about me, sort of originally from South Trinidad, San Fernando crew. Did
Big up.
did my did my high schooling at NAPS. Got really excited about sort of technology and coding from a very young age, and was always interested in sort of like how can I sort of build something that's sort of like bigger than sort of where I'm from. And that was sort of like my introduction into sort of computer science, coding. Did that throughout high school, um, and then ended up pursuing comp sci at Harvard University, where I did my bachelor's for 4 years. My junior year got really interested in sort of machine learning AI because it was sort of like the buzz around campus, and I took a class. And just like really loved it. Spent a few summers interning at different sort of companies. One in particular was at Instagram, where I got to work on some of the cutting edge ML algorithms and ML infrastructure, and that sort of brought me to sort of do a PhD in AI machine learning, which I recently finished at Oxford. And so sort of currently what I'm interested in is sort of how can we use AI to sort of really, I think there is this sort of negative perception of AI being this, it's going to take our jobs. It's very much a Terminator sort of perception of AI, particularly I think because of the influence of media and the internet. But I think there's this really huge opportunity here for us in the Caribbean, for the world in general, and I'm excited for AI to sort of really transform our lives and industries in the future.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Mandela, you could let them know. Well, actually, my bad. Dr. Mandela. This is a recent thing. This is a recent thing. This happened when maybe a couple months ago, right? So, congrats on that, Dr. Mandela.
Thank you. It's not that big of a deal.
Not that big of a deal. All
Yeah.
right, yeah.
It's no small thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Mandela's been doing amazing work, man. Like, I'm excited to see the trajectory that he's gonna take things on as he's becoming a leader in the space of machine learning and just broader technology, because his focus may be within artificial intelligence and machine learning in particular, but as he will soon realize, like, people will begin coming to you for so many things outside of just your core,
Mhm.
and as you establish yourself as a leader in the space, they'll be looking for to you for direction as to where the overall technology ecosystem is going to be going, and how can you have impact in spaces and places outside of where your focus may be. So, Keston, yeah, give us an introduction. Tell us a bit about what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for having me on this. This is actually real fun. It's nice to meet you guys and see you again in some cases. So my background is in neuroscience. I did medical neuroscience in the University of Sussex in Brighton, England. I really, really love Trinidad. I just didn't want to stay in England. Not that England's bad. I mean, the weather isn't great, but I really wanted to come home. I have a great passion for my country. I I got a scholarship to go off to university, and I was good to see the government here, of course. So there's this interest in seeing home developed, right? You know, they say home is a place where someone is waiting. Home is also a place where they have great doubles. So there's this love and appreciation for what is mine and where I've come from. And I sit and I look at some of the creators like um his name is from UE. Can't remember his name. Oh my god. Agard, Professor Agard, and they have other innovators in the science space, in the art space, in the tech space. Like they have lots of incredible people, and that is what motivates me. Like if they can have that kind of success, then I can have this kind of success. And when I sit on a panel like this, it's like, okay, it's clear that they've seen that I've done something of note, and that means that I'm heading in the right direction. So I'm saying this as someone who is a learner and also someone who is emerging, and that is a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of power. And my core thing in my life relating to my business and all my other projects is about giving people power. And I think both Camille and Mandela's and engagements also speak to that. Is about bringing something that's so far away and appears to be so inaccessible into the hands of regular men and women. So my emphasis and my strength is on in data and neuroscience. I love those two things, and I think that has a big part in our future to come. Um, we do peak performance training primarily, and we develop programs and platforms that help people to control and regulate their brain activities so that they can get the most out of themselves. Because everybody, well, the assumption is that everybody has a brain once you're alive, right? And championing that thing, championing the brain is it's an art in itself and a science in itself, and it's one of those things that we have to achieve in order to have mastery, and we have to achieve in order to have success. And I'm you see what Mandela does is like the base and center of a lot of our future, and that even has its leanings into creation and art and generative art and those kinds of things. So I will stop there. The two things I definitely want you guys to get is one, that I'm extremely passionate about us, and two, that I'm extremely passionate about the application of technology, especially as it relates to neuroscience and people.
Yeah, good. So I think we have a myriad of perspectives here. Um, one thing that is core is that the work that Mandela is doing, and overall within that field of machine learning and artificial intelligence, is going to be core to everything that everybody is doing, you
That's
know?
right.
And
That's right.
so in the way that the internet has changed our lives, uh, that being the foundation, the layer on top of that foundation is AI and machine learning, because everything is going to have to leverage that technology so that we move from having dumb technology to super smart
Mhm.
devices. So I think let me get some perspective, because from what I've heard here is that everyone really loves their Trininess. Camille come back home, Keston come back home, and every time you look at Mandela Instagram, he always waving a Trini flag. Like it have no hiding. It have no hiding. Mandela is a Trini. You see
Yeah,
Mandela in the US for how many years? He spent time in England, and his Trini accent still intact.
that's right.
I I went and studied in school. After 3 months, I don't talk in Yankee already. I'm like, man, these people are understanding me. So, so Mandela keeping the accent intact. So kudos to you, Mandela. Um, and so that's a demonstration that we all love our Trininess, and our Caribbeanness. So my question to the panel is, how do you see us leveraging our Caribbeanness as our own competitive advantages, our strategic advantage in the work that we do, so that yeah, it becomes an advantage to us, and not something that we see as, oh my gosh, I'm Trinidad, so I'm from this small place, nobody will understand me, or whatever the case is. How do you seeing that? How are you seeing that in your interactions?
I get started there actually. And so I think for me, I have two interesting thoughts on this. One is from like I think a cultural sort of standpoint. And so when you think about sort of the future of technology and future of the world where AI and automation is going to play a much bigger role, what that looks like is that the people who are going to be at the forefront of sort of leadership, like and technology slash entrepreneurship, are people who could understand people and people who could interact with people. And so I think there's going to be a future where a lot of these soft skills actually become more important than sort of these hard skills that we sort of spend years. I just did a PhD for like X amount of years. Like AI is going to be able to replace my like hard skills quite soon. And so what that looks like is a future where soft skills, being able to like interact with people, being able to hold a conversation, be able to understand people's emotion, be able to think more broadly and across disciplines is actually going to be the key differentiating factor. And I think being from the Caribbean, we have a lot of experience, and that's part of who we are and our culture. And so that's one. And then two, I think with because due to COVID and just technology in general, you're seeing a shift where this sort of like digital nomad shift where it doesn't matter where you are once you have a laptop. And I think we have this incredible opportunity where Trinidad and the Caribbean more broadly is strategically placed to be a big player in that space. One, we in a very good time zone. Like Eastern time is literally the best time zone in the world. Like there's just hands down, no better time zone in the world. We also speak English, which is the most dominant language. And we're also quite familiar with like what's happening around the world because of our proximity to the United States, and just generally our like geographical location in the world. So I think we have this incredible opportunity, both from like a cultural standpoint as well as from like a geographical standpoint, to be a big part of this sort of future that we're seeing.
Yeah. So I agree strongly with that, and I think the cultural values are very important. There are two ends, right? There you have the ones where we sit on the end of we super love Trinidad. Trinidad could do no wrong. We love it. We will whip it. We will make it. We'll make it. You know. And then you have the other one where people don't see the power that can come from it, and that has to get dissolved in order for us to move forward. I think that's probably our biggest hurdle to make that cross. But more so about leveraging our skills and our abilities. I think one of them is flexibility, right? Because we have a little more agility than some other places. And when I say that, I mean in terms of legislation, in terms of freedom to move, to do certain things. And okay, I mean, how to say this? To run and develop projects in Trinidad, it's a bit easier than running and developing projects in the US. I'll give you a simple example with sugar cake and tulum, right? They can't just somebody in Trinidad come and make sugar cake and tulum and sell to everybody in Trinidad, right? Whether that's the best thing or not in terms of regulations is a different story. But the point is the market permits certain things to be done. But if you have to try to do something like that in the US and get recognized, it's a lot more challenging, And I think we in the Caribbean have a lot of problems that the world has. Because we're humans, we're people. And that is super important because there's this idea that we're alone. As the first step in denigration or going down is the idea that what you are experiencing, no one else is. But the moment we start realizing that we are similar to everyone else, that's where we start to get power. It's like, okay, but wait now. So I have problems. We have problems with mortality rate with women with diabetes. Okay, for example, that is not preeclampsia is not something that came here. We didn't invent it here. It's a problem that's in lots of other places, lots of other countries. So that flexibility is very important. I think what Mandela mentioned as well, I think is very, very powerful. We have this weird mix of socialism and capitalism that allows us to be able to look inward and see ourselves as individuals, but at the same time look outward and see our contribution and relationship with society. Those values are not exactly that way in every country. For example, in the US, highly capitalist, highly individual-centric, right? And the world thinks that they will survive like that. And then you have in Asia, highly pedagogical, high, the government is the centrality in power. Then you have in Africa is more community and its spread, its power is diverse and shared. And I think that mix for us is also a very important position, a very important tool, and very important values. And I'm glad that we start with values because everything is based on our values. Okay, I'm done.
Great question, Kyle. Absolutely great question. I want to share a story. I come from a generation where we used to bathe in the river, right? That's when rivers were clean. So we would walk from school, take off our clothes, jump from a bridge, dive in the river and bathe. But before I was able to do that, an uncle of mine, what he would do, as a child will take me and throw me in the river before I even knew how to swim. And I would be so angry with this uncle because why is he throwing me in the river and I do not know how to swim? Only to learn later that was how we learned to swim in the village, right? COVID was like that. COVID was like that for the animation sector and the digital media sector in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think for the world. We weren't prepared for that. And because of that, we had to create different ways of knowing, showing, demonstrating pipelines. We had to really figure that out. And what it also did was allowed even the big companies to recognize that culture now has to be brought into the mix. It, without a doubt, has to be brought into the mix. So what you find is, like, for instance, Netflix, as you can see, Nigerian animation, African animation is doing amazing. Disney just bought into one of the biggest stories in Africa to make it now into a film, right? They are looking for that kind of content. So your question is really, really relevant, Kyle, because I think we no longer have it's opened up so much now that we have no excuse to really demonstrate our culture to the world. What I do think is the challenge is the balance, because in order to fit into that distribution model, you have to make a choice. Do you remain authentic to your Caribbean-ness, or do you now look at how do you make this palatable for the world? And that means that way of us talking as Trinis may need to be tweaked a bit. Are you willing to give that up? If you're willing to give that up, you can do it. But I don't think you have to give it up. I do feel there are ways to work around those things so that you melt into this global cultural callaloo that is going to happen. Without a doubt, it's going to happen, whereby our Caribbean stories could be on international platforms. But it does mean, that we have to give up something. And that is where, when I'm talking about it and my heart hurting, Kyle, I'm like, oh my God, what do we have to give up? But it is a very, very, very important thing that the industry has to do. And I quickly want to end with an example. Full Circle Animation Studio, I'm a director on Full Circle Animation Studio. It is run by someone called Jason Lindsay. We do outsourcing work. We do international work. Just so that you know, at some point, we were something like 90% of our work was coming from abroad. We were bringing in foreign currency. We were not dependent on Caribbean work at all. So the world is changing, and therefore we have to find a way to fit into that. And those are the decisions that we kind of have to figure out how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think we have the flexibility for it. I really believe that, Camille. I believe that.
Yes, we do.
I wanna so good points. I think we're seeing it from different perspectives, and naturally I like that. I want to bring in Joanza into the conversation here a little bit. Joanza, you have any questions to the panel? Any thoughts on what we've been saying so far?
I only have one question, and that's like, what is it like today? Like, okay, today is like my birthday, right? And like,
Happy birthday.
I wonder,
Happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. So, when she spoke about animation, that kind of captured my attention because I went to Southeast for the Spain, right? And at that institution, right, I learned a lot of different things other than school stuff and curriculum and all that craziness. But when she said like animation and all those things, I went into technology and those things. Like, how did you start off this kind of canal? So,
Camille. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I actually spent a year at Southeast Port of Spain, believe it or not. Right? I went from St. Joseph Convent, St. Joseph, to Southeast Port of Spain. Long story. We don't have time for me to explain that. So, but I was in that environment. I think that really, really pushed me to do the work that I do, because in there, I felt like, okay, I came from this background where I'm from St. Joseph Convent. I don't have this convent accent, right, y'all? Do I?
No, you're good.
No,
you're good.
right. Thank you. I worked really hard on that. I worked really hard. Anyway, your question is where did I start from? And I think it is down to the passion of art. I always loved art. And I do feel that all of us here have some creative element in us. I just express it using art. Coming from the schools at that time, as I said initially, it really didn't have the options for someone like myself, because I kind of fall on the fence. So I'm creative and I'm also technical. I'm very, very technical. And I didn't fit well in St. Joseph Convent. That's why I had to go out of school to do what I was doing. Now, this is a situation whereby somebody's knocking on my door, you all. Can you believe that? Hold on.
All right. Camille, go on.
Okay. Yeah, there she is.
Okay, you all go ahead without me. I'm gonna just mute for a minute.
Yeah,
All
cool.
right.
So
All right. All right.
I concur with what she's saying there. There's this passion, and almost
Mhm.
always there's pain, right? There's two things that drives humans to do anything: pain and pleasure. Pain is the thing that keeps us from repeating our mistakes in the past and moving into something that's positive. And pleasure is the thing that sustains us on the way to our goals, right? And that's real important. And every person, I think, save Mandela's kind of mention that is something that I didn't like. I want to stay home. I want to do this. I want to do that. So that's central to where we started. In my case, I really wanted to do something with the brain and the science part. That was really interesting to me. And I also was interested in um, demystifying neuroscience and making it something that's accessible to people, right? Making it something that is approachable and fun, and practical, most importantly. So we all have our own parts, and I think what Camille said is really important. That creative part, that entrepreneurial part. Being entrepreneurial doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a business. You know, it's about change, it's about innovation, and it's about that. And I think that is something that Trinidadians are not Trinidadians, Caribbean people are very good at, because if you look at us in a lot of the industries that we champion in the world. That's oil and gas, that's tourism, that's music. There is this, we have so little time and so little resources that we multiply. We are 10x region plus. And I think that is something that we have to settle in and put into the way that we do things. So yeah, I think Camille's back so she can finish what she said.
Yeah.
I so apologize for that. So apologize.
No worries.
I just wanted to finish off by saying, Joanne, so that I had issues at school, the traditional schools, because I am very, very technical. I understand science. I understand, all these things. And I also am very creative. And with the traditional education system, there's no place for people like me. There was no place for people like me. So therefore, I didn't do too well in the St. Joseph Convent, which is why I had to look for somewhere else. So the reason why I'm saying that is that anybody out there who's listening, who feel like they don't fit into the traditional education system, understand that there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you have to find a different way of learning. So the way how I learn, like I can't read too much stuff. My brain goes crazy. I can't read a tutorial, but show me a tutorial. Go onto YouTube and show me how to do it, and bet your bottom dollar I could do it. This is kind of some of the work that I'm doing at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. So for instance, we have a very high intake of autistic students, right? And the reason why is because our way of teaching is different. So we understand that autistic students learn a different way. They also don't communicate. So if a child is autistic and in a class and is not talking, traditionally the teacher will go, why are you not speaking? Why are you not talking?
Yeah.
Not understanding that this child is learning a different way, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could talk about that quite a bit, but just so those who are listening understand that it's all okay and it's just a different way that you need to approach education.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
like that.
we're yeah. I wanna get an understanding, I guess, of where each of you see see the use of technology, or see us from your perspective, or would like to see us ideally, let's say in the next like 5-10 years, like where you wanna see us as a region? Yeah, don't all rush at the same time, I guess. Let's start
Yeah.
with Mandela. You can go ahead, man.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think what would be ideal is that I think a lot more upskilling. I think that as sort of like what Camille said, like there's just so much free information on the internet. Like it's there's just like you can literally wake up one morning and learn a bunch of stuff. And so I think my ideal future would be we like people get leverage a lot of these resources that have become available. Like a lot of these companies have like a lot of these courses online. You could go on Coursera and really upskill, and then sort of I think there's this huge opportunity that like as sort of like what Camille said, like a lot of her work is outside of the region, right? Like you could make a really good living being in Trinidad with good weather, with your doubles, with your like getting to go to Maracas with your bacon shack. And so I think we're seeing this paradigm shift where and like you see Barbados leaning into this. It's like they have this work stamp now where you could work from Barbados for a year. And I didn't know why, as a like Trinidad, like particularly, I think Tobago had this cool opportunity to do something very similar, and didn't really tap into it. And so I think both from like Trinidad becoming like like a outsourcing sort of like empire, um, in the global sphere. And then sort of us also being a magnet to people to come to want to come to the Caribbean, work in Trinidad, I think would be amazing. Like for example, the company I work for, we have like close to 10 of our engineers are based in Ukraine. And Ukraine is one, they do not speak English, is not their first language. The time difference sucks. It's like 7 hours ahead of say the Trinidad time difference. And so I think we have a great time difference. We speak English. We're very smart people. We're very flexible. We're very creative. And so us tapping into this shift that we're seeing would be, I think, so ideal.
Yeah.
Turn.
All right.
Yeah, my turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Well,
that. Go ahead.
just to comment on that quickly. I think what you're saying there, Mandela, in terms of the digital nomad experience, I think is a massive opportunity that we need as a country and as a region to lean into what our natural resources are. So back in the day, the natural resources was your oil, gas, your bananas, etc., etc., etc. Okay, cool. We've come to a trajectory whereby a lot of the natural resources they're usable, they're being used up, right? We're coming to a point whereby a lot of them are being used up, and the rest of the world has tuned into it, and so we've become a lot less competitive in a lot of these areas, right? And so where do we lean next, right? And where we lean next is in this opportunity whereby, like you said, we have a place that people dream about coming to. So many of your friends that you meet all over the world see the Caribbean as this amazing place, and we take it for granted that I wake up today and I have nice lush green mountains, and this is my view every day, right? And people would love to do this, would love to wake up to this environment. And so if we were to lean more aggressively into something that cannot be replicated, like London can't wake up tomorrow and say they have amazing mountains, and beaches. They can't. It's just impossible for them to do. And so if we lean more heavily into the things that are totally unreplicatable, we will be able to attract amazing high quality talent into our space, whereby these people like yourselves that can work from anywhere on the planet are making significantly more than your average paying job, will be able to be attracted here, as well as develop our own talent that can tap into the global space. We'll create
right.
such an amazing ecosystem of really high quality people, high paying jobs, contributing to the local ecosystem through them training, them starting new companies, them participating in
Yeah.
educating people and uplifting
Yeah.
society in that way, I think, man, there's such a massive opportunity that is being untapped there, that if a leader in the region really picks up and does what they need to do, we can really catapult and begin seeing some significant shifts happening.
And Kat,
Absolutely.
like you're also seeing that, for example, like your tech beat retreat stuff. Like you just tell your participants, like any people you invite, like come to Jamaica for a weekend, and they're like, yeah, sure.
I want to share a story. I invited someone from Leica Studios, and if you know Leica Studios, they do all of the 3D stop motion animation, Kuba and the Two Strings, all the award winning ones. And I invited him to a week before Carnival, before COVID happened, with the idea that he could spend Carnival. He jumped on that plane, came here, and brought his wife, paid for costumes, paid for hotel after his time doing the workshops that he's supposed to do. You can't put a value in that, because what that person is going to do is he is going to be an ambassador for Carnival, right? And it's because of that we came up with a concept called live, lime, and work like a local, to do with the animation industry. Look out for that. That is going to happen. It's already on the Anime Carib website. But just to answer your question, Kyle, if I could, do we have time?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Regarding the what the next steps are, I feel, well, certainly gender parity is one of the things on my radar also. As you can see from here, it's 4 of you all but 1 of me. But that is it. That is what it is. It is what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we have to do the work that we need to do. Now, even me being here, I know I'm empowering other women. So just being here too, I know that other women will be empowered. So that's one thing. The other thing is to recognize, and we can't wait for the government, we can't wait for the men in power, for the people in power to do this, but certainly to recognize that culture and creativity has a value. It is an asset. And therefore, how do we use these assets to move forward? I don't know the approach to that, but I do feel that there's something there. And the last thing I want to say that we need to do is look at educational reform, because coding should be starting in primary school. I'm sorry.
That's right.
It should be starting in primary school. Coding is like it's like the alphabet right now. Everybody needs to understand that. So there's some huge education reform that needs to happen in the Caribbean. Being part of CXC, I'm doing my best to do that. But I think it will make a huge change and have more people like Mandela and everybody else who's on this panel.
I agree big time. You see that part that she said about 2 things: changing the culture and changing the capacity of the people, especially leading towards technology, and having children learn code as early as they can, is because code is not fundamental, right? We experience it up the froth on the top when we use the internet and all these things, but it is really a fundamental for us for the future. And the other thing I think is very important for us to be able to move into that future is the giving up the fear of failing, is surrendering to that fear to fail. If we don't get that, and that is not something that is easy for us to change, like it will take time because it comes from the parenting. So that change is only going to start happening with our when we start to have children and stuff, and our like our friend who's like 40 now having children, they're the ones who starting to make that change. But it has to change, because children shouldn't be afraid to be themselves. Children should not be afraid to experiment, and children should not be afraid to create. Those 3 things are required for us to make progress in any society, on any planet, any community. There must be safety, and once you have safety, you can create. And we have enjoyed safety in the region for some time. Better than other countries, to be honest with you. Way better than other countries. And you would think that we'd have these big jumps like how you see with Singapore and how you see in some other countries. We haven't had that big jump because I think discipline is a big part of it, and that fear is another part of it that has to be surrendered. Otherwise, we can't make it forward. So that's what I would say about that. I think that's real important. Bringing the data early, bringing the coding early, and bringing the concept that it's okay to fail, because we're not actually failing, we're just succeeding slowly here.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really fundamental point, Gaston. I think we've been inculcated in our learning from an early age to be so competitive and not collaborative, unfortunately, when the reality is that in everything that we do, we're connected, right? We're so dependent on other people all the time at every aspect of our lives to do their job well and us understand their context of what it takes to get their job done. But we learn and are taught to learn in such an individualistic manner, coming first in tests and who you beat and what school you pass for and these sorts of things, really inculcating in you the wrong mindset, which in reality it should be a way more collaborative approach to learning. Because if students learn from a young age to learn together and understanding that no man left behind, no student left behind. Say, Miss Keston don't understand what's going on, and Mandela turn to Keston and teach him how to do a certain problem because Mandela can probably relate with Keston better than the teacher could probably relate with Keston. But no, all we do is to say, well, boy, Keston dunce, why you far behind? Why you ain't learning in this way? I tired teach you this already. I tired tell you this already. And Mandela turn into Keston and laughing, gib, boy, he don't know kind of thing, And that's the culture that we build. And so
we have
naturally, the outcomes are what we're seeing in society today, whereby it's extremely individualistic. We don't want to work with each other, unfortunately, and we have a low trust for working with each other, and we don't get the kind of outcomes that we sit down here between us would only hope and dream for. And so we all touched on the point of education, right? And so we need an educational reform to occur at every level, right? And not just from the perspective of, well, coding is a language that needs to be learned. Also from the perspective of the learning style needs to change significantly, and realize that this individualistic type of learning is actually defeating us. It's horrendous. A collectivism type approach is what will actually get us to make significant more progress than this sort of, well, I from the school or I from wherever, and you only caring about yourself and your little people from wherever you are, sort of thing, So I think we hit the nail on the head there, man. And if we can see that this is the fundamental problem between us here, and we can extrapolate this sort of perspective and thinking to other people within our other circles, and we can continue to press on this singular factor of education, I think the outcomes that we can yield from this will be exponential. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. We're coming to the close of our session today, and I think we really had a really rich discussion on where we see the Caribbean, how we see it from our unique perspectives. Camille is a storyteller, so every time Camille interjects, I have a story to tell you. That's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence. Camille is a storyteller in her animation. That's what she's doing. She's telling stories all the time, right? So it's good. I really got to appreciate each of your styles of bringing across your perspectives on the region and what is possible. And I'm excited to see the impact as we continue to go forward together, tackling it from our different perspectives. Me on this approach of bringing more people together, Keston on understanding the mind and people harnessing their individual selves in that way. Mandela, AI as the layer and the foundation for what is to be next. Camille in that amazing way that we tell our Caribbeanness and our stories on the global stage. And all of these come together to really tell a story of us as a Caribbean people, harnessing our Caribbeanness on the world stage. And I'm really excited for what is next and what is to come. And us as leaders in this space really continuing to collaborate to get to those outcomes.
I mean, thank you all so very much for that. Kyle, thank you for moderating this panel. I think this was really amazing. Kyle, you wrapped this up so perfectly that I have nothing else to say. Thank you all very much. We're coming back in a few moments with the agriculture panel. We're going to be talking about how do we feed the future. Quite interestingly enough, we're going to be talking about how we use technology as well to feed the future in that panel. So tune into that, and thank you again, panelists, for joining us today. See you all in a bit.
All right. Cheers. Bye bye.